Uh, just, Hello and welcome everyone. And so this is another episode of Project Sanity. We're just getting some technical things worked out just beforehand. We have Eric stepping in for our current usual broadcaster. And sorry, I just gotta. I'm hearing an echo. I think it's on my side, so I'll work on getting that resolved. I just want to welcome Nis back, who's back from a long hiatus. Go ahead and let us know, Nis, what's kept you away, and we're just happy to have you back. So go ahead and come on in.
Yeah, hi, and thanks for that welcome. Yeah, I was in Denmark prepping a wedding that I also had to attend as the groom, I believe. Uh, no, I did a whole Viking wedding, and those of you who likes to Google wedding pictures, you go to my Facebook page, and there's a public album there if you want to take a gander. Um, yeah, so I got married, as in we went through the ritual, but the legal marriage hasn't been done yet. That is waiting to be done here stateside. That's not going to be a big affair. That's just going to be me and her and City Hall and a signature. But yeah, so I was gone to be with my kids, set up a wedding, and do the wedding, do the honeymoon, be with my kids some more, do a christening in the family, and do another wedding, and then we went home. So yeah, that took a little bit out of me and the missus.
All right. We're really glad to, to have you back, Nis, and I was able to resolve that echo issue for myself. So I just wanted to say we have a lot on the show today. We're also going to be welcoming a new member of the Project Sanity team later in the show. We're going to be talking about what's been going on with the water protectors and the No Dapple and some other pipeline-related stories. But first, we're going to go ahead and jump right into some reasonably breaking news about the officer involved shooting in Oklahoma. The Tulsa Police Department recently released the camera footage, and Think Progress has an article out that actually has the charging of the officer involved in the shooting of first-degree manslaughter. And you can check it out at thinkprogress.org. I just wanted to kind of read a little piece from it. It says, count one. Basically, on the 16th, she's accused of manslaughter in the first degree in the heat of passion, a felony. And it says the police officer encountered Terrence Stafford Crutcher in the vicinity of the 2300 block. And based upon Terrence Crutcher's non-compliant actions and behavior, the defendant fear resulted in unreasonable actions, which led to her shooting Terrence with a handgun, which thereby caused his death. So I kind of edited out some stuff. You can see the whole thing there. But what I think is important there is that the charge is that she was basically unreasonably scared, and then resulted in his death. There's another charge of manslaughter, first degree, resisting criminal attempt. Basically outlines the same thing, but it mentions that his refusal to comply with her lawful orders. The defendant unlawfully, unnecessarily shot Terrence Stafford Crutcher with her handgun, which thereby caused his death. And so those are the charges. It's important to note there was a case in North Carolina. This is separate. Back in 2015, you may remember a young man had gotten a car accident and went to one of the adjacent homes to knock on the door for help. Police arrived and shot him dead. That officer was also charged with manslaughter, but after a hung jury and other judicial issues, the prosecutor decided to not retry the case, and so he was not convicted of any charges and is out. He retired from the force, though. At least that force. Whether he's going to get employed at another police department is yet to be determined. And so beyond that, we also wanted to talk a little bit about some of the other shootings that have been coming up and what's been going on in Charlotte with the protests, the violence, the stuff that's happened since then. Just to keep in mind, there was the Tulsa shooting, and then there was also recently a 13-year-old who was shot. And there's conflicting stories about what's going on. And it's really hard for me to even really want to get into the facts of any of these cases, just because what we really have are witnesses and police witnesses and conflicting stories about what transpired. And it's hard to say that we ever really find out what actually happened. And so rather than try and speculate one way or the other or push one narrative or the other, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the ripple effects that this has on communities and other people beyond the people immediately involved in the shootings. It's a sensitive subject. It's hard for me not to get upset and somewhat enraged about it, but there was Sean King recently tweeted out. Some people may have seen it. Some may have read it themselves, but I just wanted to read it out on air today. And basically what it was is a post from Rebecca Lee, who is a teacher in a school. And they sat down and spoke with some of the students, or gave the students an opportunity to kind of process what was going on. And she wrote out her experience, and I think it's worth sharing. And so I actually wanted to read it for us. So I'll try to be quick. Today at school, our staff decided we needed to press pause and create a space for kids to share their thoughts and feelings in response to the killing of Mr. Crutchner. I was part of facilitating 3 small group discussions that throughout the day, a 5th grade group, a 6th grade group, and a 7th and 8th grade group. I wanted to share what I experienced with the kids today because I'm convinced that what you can put yourself in the shoes of a child of color in Tulsa right now, you have a clear understanding of the crisis we're facing and why we say Black Lives Matter. 1, I look at the wide-eyed faces of the 5th graders surrounding me, 10 and 11 years old, waiting to hear what I had to say. I tell them we will read a news article about the shooting together so we can all be informed. As I read, the students busily highlight and underline parts that stand out to them. Fatally shot, hands raised, bad dude, motionless, affected forever. I finish and I ask them, what are your thoughts? They answer with questions. Why did they have to kill him? Why were they afraid of him? Why does the student have to live with life without a father? What will she do at a father-daughter dances? Who will walk her down the aisle? Why did no one help him after he was shot? Hasn't this happened before? Can we write her cards? Can we protest? As the questions roll, so do the tears. Students cry softly as they speak. Others weep openly. I watch 10-year-olds pass tissues to each other, to me, to our principal, as he joins our circle. One girl closes our group by sharing, I wish white people could give us a chance. We can all come together and get along. We can all be united. Let me tell you, these 10-year-olds are more articulate about this than I am. We agree to love one another. We take care of one another. I tell each of them that I am white and I love them and they matter to me. The group of 6th grade girls that surround me are either red-eyed or withdrawn. They sit next to Mr. Crutchner's daughter in class. They are her friends. Nearly every student has a tissue as we read the article together. When I open the floor for discussion, silence. It hurts to talk about. It hurts to think about. It hurts. I fight the urge to fill the dead air with my voice. A few quiet words are whispered about sadness and unfairness, but the rest of the time is spent wiping eyes and hugging one another. It becomes clear that no one else is in a place to speak. I give them the space to process silently, and then I tell them, we have different skin colors. I love you. You matter. You are worthy. You are human. You are valuable. Shoulders shake harder around the circle. I realize that this is the first time all year I have affirmed my love for them. The rest of the cafeteria is hushed. The 6th graders are quiet. The tragedy lives and breathes among them. It could have been their father. Boys are scattered across the cafeteria, their heads buried in their shirts. A girl who just moved to Tulsa from New Orleans because her father wanted to escape the violence is choked up as she speaks in a group next to mine. When we come back together as a whole group, one boy is still crying as another rubs his hand on his back soothingly. These students are older, 13, and number 3. These students are older, 13 and 14. They're hardened. They are angry. Some students refuse to hold or look at the article. They speak matter-of-factly. One says she feels like punching someone in the nose. Another student says, I used to read about this happening and think, oh, that's sad, and then kind of forget about it. But this happened so close to home, it feels real now. Sorry. I take 36th Street North to and from school every day. It happened right by my house. What made him a big bad dude? A boy asks. Was his height? His size? I look at my boys' circle, all the former students of mine. They have grown inches since the first day of my class. Their voices have deepened, their shoulders broadened. They all nod their heads in agreement at the student's last guess. The color of his skin? I share this story because Mr. Crutchner's death does not just affect the students at my school. I share this story because we are creating an identity crisis in all of our Black and brown students. Do I matter? Am I to be feared? Should I live in fear? Am I human? We are shaping their world with blood and bullets and hashtags and viral videos. Is this how we want them to feel? Is this how we want them to think? I share this story because I spent the last 2 years teaching kids that we write to interact with and understand the world, that our voices matter, and that our voices deserve to be heard. I share this story because while I could never capture the articulate things said or the raw emotions students shared today, my privilege requires that I speak. I ask that you read. I ask that you use whatever privilege or platform you have to speak. I ask that you put yourself in the shoes of Black and brown children growing up in a world where they see videos of their classmates' fathers shot and bleeding in the street. I ask that you love and you love hard. So I know that was a bit long, and it was...
that was beautiful, Richard. No apologies for that, man.
Yeah, and so I thought it was important to share, and so I hope other folks are inspired to share their experiences to help other people understand what it is that people are living through. And so that was what I wanted to cover regarding that. If we had some other headlines that we wanted to mention, we can touch on those a bit, I suppose. I know that there's just been a few things going on in the news, or if you guys just wanted to respond to what you heard there and what you guys have been seeing in the reports.
Well, a woman named Heather Ann Thompson, who writes for NBC News Online, did an article on Charlotte called "Charlotte is Burning," and it has a subtitle called "Waking Up from the American Dream Finally," where she highlights how Charlotte has, in the past decade, been seen as this progressive, successful, bustling city, and how people have been able to talk about these police shootings. Oh, those are from rural cities, not from cities with ghettos and crime and problems, and the police are afraid there, and there's a reason for it. It makes sense. And she's saying that now that it has happened in Charlotte, which is the city that is seen as so progressive and rich and bustling and growing, it puts a dent into the facade of not just Charlotte, but of the argument that it's only in poor neighborhoods it's happening, in poor cities that it's happening. By simply showing that, well, in Charlotte, you also have very poor Black neighborhoods that is extremely heavily policed, and you have very affluent white neighborhoods where you never see a police car. So, and just to think that we're today more and more talking about policing as being something offense written, that like it's not a good thing to have a police car drive through your neighborhood, that's actually a bad thing, that it means harassment, that it means intimidation, that it means that you're not trusted, that it means a feeling of an invasion into your neighborhood, that it means all of these things today is sickening, concerning. It's troubling. It's many things that it should not be.
Well, I mean, there's just so much to unpack there. First, I want to, applaud this teacher for not doing what we see a lot in the media, which is, white voices sort of narrating the story themselves and how they feel about it, but instead, not trying to give voice to the voiceless, but instead giving a platform to the voices that already exist. It's like she said, these students are perfectly capable of articulating their own problems themselves, and the best way to really personalize this struggle is to put it in the voices of these children who I think we can all agree are not, despite what our society says, are not old enough to really bear that burden of criminalized Black yet. They're still at least innocent in theory. And hearing them, express their frustration and rage at, what has occurred is just so important. And also just their general, not necessarily rage, but their sadness, because I think the narrative of Black rage and Black, the angry Black person is so, ingrained in our culture that expressing, having Black people express this, this myriad emotion, this emotional spectrum of frustration, sadness, uh, you know, uh, awakening. It's very humanizing, which is what we want. We want this. We want to humanize the Black community and have people understand that, like Nis so eloquently put, there are two Charlottes. There are two every cities. There's two New Yorks. There are two Chicago. There's the Chicago you see on TV and like in the movies, and then there's Black Chicago. There is Black Charlotte. There's Black New York. There are basically these little neo reservations that Black people live within, and they have a very different life experience within the same city, sometimes within miles of what we consider to be bustling metropolises and bustling cities of progressivism. We have, just these neo colonies where Black people are living like lives of deprivation, sometimes quietly and sometimes not so quietly.
Okay, Adair, you seem to be wanting to speak as well.
I appreciate that it was a letter that was written this time, because I cannot express to white people in particular just how traumatizing it is to see autoplay after autoplay after autoplay after autoplay of someone who looks like you, your brothers, your cousins, your uncles, your dad, your friends, the people you grew up with being gunned down in the street for no reason at all. I'm so tired of black and brown and yellow and red bodies being paraded about like it's some kind, like we're a sideshow, that we're just something to fill up your newsfeed and to get you views on television. That's all we've become. We're relegated to sports and to being your musicians. We're relegated to being target practice and filling your jails, and that's it. And I'm tired of being a spectacle. So I appreciate that she wrote a letter. But I also want people to appreciate that a lot of our community at this point in time, we're just numb. There's no more, there's anger and there's sadness, but it comes to a point where you just can't anymore. And this community, every single time we've tried to express, be it by marching, sitting, taking to the streets, no matter what we do, we're constantly harassed. We're told we're even where someone was shot in the head by police in Charlotte. A protester was. We can't. And I'm just tired. I'm tired. I can't even cry anymore, guys. I can't. I'm just so damn tired.
Okay. Very heartfelt from you, Adair. Thank you very much. Today we're joined by Pat Spray, who has worked with Richard and I previously on our shows. And he's joining us for the first time since he moved from Washington, D.C. to Washington State. And Pat, as a Native American and as a person who has been a part of protests and movements and politics since the 60s and 70s, you have your own take on this. Why don't you let us know a piece of your mind?
Well, I can understand the weariness that the Black community is feeling. I mean, my people have been weary for 500 years. We're killed at, as a percentage of the population, Native Americans have a higher death rate in interactions with police than even Blacks. We just don't get the airtime. There's a problem right now in our police departments. I mean, we've had problems. I'm talking 50 years of problems, 60 years, 100 years, 200 years of problems with the police department, with authorities, with the dominant culture, where a lot of othering goes on, and it goes on within the communities, or at least Native communities, as well as the surrounding dominant cultures. So there's two sides to that. And I'm not saying that that means that natives deserve to get killed. I'm just saying that every time that there is a Native American who's killed, that has an impact on the community. Some people, it activates them and they become activists and they get out there and they try to make changes and they try to do things. On the opposite side, you radicalize people and they pull away from the dominant culture. And then you have a whole group of people in the middle, and this is especially a problem on the reservations with suicides, where the anger, instead of being turned outward, gets turned inward. So there is a problem in this country. Been a good way of addressing it. A lot of it has to do with the fact that, at least this is my take anyway, is that the dominant culture has a bad case of the guilts. And if they ever were to actually admit to what they've done to the natives, to the blacks, to the Hispanics in this country, that it's just too much. It screws up the whole narrative of manifest destiny and how great this country is and so on. And we really need, now in Australia, they did a project where they have a day every year where the dominant culture goes to the minorities in that country and says that they're sorry. Whole big production that they do for an entire day. Now, is that effective? I don't know. Start. The Canadian government apologized to the Native peoples for the residential schools. And there was a big reconciliation on that.
Why don't you explain why it's necessary to apologize for schools? Not everyone may know.
Schools, the residential schools were basically to deprogram natives so that they would become white. Kill the natives, save the man. And they took children away from their parents. They told the parents had to surrender them, the tribes had to surrender them, or they wouldn't get any food. And so most of the tribes, both in Canada and in the US, were pushed onto land where there was not enough water, not enough ways to get food, grow food, etc. They were dependent upon the government handouts. And if you wanted your handout, you had to surrender your kids. And the kids were taken to, in the beginning, religious, but then the actual governments got into it too, into these boarding schools where the kids were kept from their parents, from their culture. They weren't allowed to speak their language. They weren't allowed to wear their normal clothes. They had their hair cut, which in most Native communities is a sign of mourning. All kinds of things like that. There was sexual abuse. There was physical abuse. Children died. A lot of children died. And then when the children were 16, 17 years old, they sent them back to the reservation. They have then no understanding of how family life works, how to raise their own children. All they know is, that you beat children. There's a lot of guilt. I must have done something wrong. I'm evil. I'm bad. My culture is bad. It led to a lot of drug abuse, a lot of drinking, a lot of problems that are still not sorted. My dad was at Mount Pleasant, Michigan for 4 years. And he never talked about it while he was alive. I didn't find out till I was doing an episode for Native Life on the boarding schools, and I was poking around. Well, what have they got in Michigan, And there was his name. So he was there from first grade through fifth grade.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Thank you for sharing that with us. Adair, you have a leg in each camp. Why don't you try and tell us from your perspective how you feel?
it's hard to put it into words because and I guess I should start at the beginning of why this becomes hard to put into words. One of the things that was effective for the United States government and the Canadian government and all these other governments of colonizers throughout the world, one of the most effective tools was to eliminate ways of people tracking and finding who they were related to, destroying families, splitting them up, removing communities, moving people over here and over there. So as someone who has a foot in both camps, growing up in the Black community, we have actually a very specific names for different people in our group. People that show, more of the Native physiological traits than other Black people. We're called red bones, right? So you'll hear in the Black community, and a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm red boned, I've got good hair. That's what's been used to denote, and Brandon's rubbing his hair in the background. Actually, out of myself, Richard, and Brandon, I'm actually the only one with the good hair. But that was something used to to say, hey, this is our one link to this culture that we have, but we're not allowed to partake in. And part of that is because of the 1/16th idea that the government says, unless you can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that you're 1/16th this, you don't get any say about it. And they did that in particular with Native cultures and Native communities, because as time goes on, you're going to have less and less people meeting that 1/16th threshold, less and less people you have to worry about dealing with the treaties, even though they don't actually follow through on their treaties. But the less people that qualify for it, the better off the government is. Same with the 1 drop rule for being Black. If you have 1 drop, you're considered Black. And that goes back all the way to slavery. So that's how they started being able to say, well, that Native person over there who married a Black person, their children, they're Black. They've got 1 drop, they're Black, put them on the plantation. You're a slave. And you remove somebody from their culture. So our communities have always been intertwined. When slaves would run away, especially in the deep South, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, you saw slaves running away and oftentimes being adopted by a Native tribe. And I got you, Brandon, I see you up there, so I'll make this quick. See people coming together. So you see this history of Native people have always been there for Black folks. They've always helped us out. But as time has gone on and legacies have been erased and families have been destroyed, we lose the ability to go back and learn about that culture. You lose the ability to go back and learn about your family's roots. There's nobody in the South left. There's very few tribes rather left in the South. Nobody in Tennessee. Nobody where my family's from, where my ancestors are from. In Tennessee, there's nobody left. Everyone was moved out. And so that destroys the links, that destroys the cultural ties that we had. So, I would have loved to have been able to grow up and learn the traditions and the language and the history of my people, but I didn't get a chance. But that's by design. And so it hurts. It's maddening to try to reconcile being more than one race, being Native and being Black, being Asian and being Native and being Black, being white, being Native, being Asian and being Black, and trying to bring these things together. It's hard. But I think there's a chance, and I think it falls on us as Black folks to investigate as best we can and start to bring back that culture, start to learn our culture, immerse ourselves in those communities, and do what we can to learn and help out, because I don't want to see these cultures die out. I don't want my culture to disappear. I don't want it to be relegated to a history textbook written by the winner. But go ahead, Brandon.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's really important because Pat spoke about the curriculum of these sort of schools that exist for Native children as though it's a thing of the past. But I think that there are very clear ties between the curriculum taught to the kids on these reservation schools and the way we teach about Native Americans to this day. Like our curriculum regarding Native Americans and their history and the complexity of that kind of their government and culture and society in general is still incredibly sparse. And not only that, but we make the oppression of Native Americans an issue of the past. We treat it as though one day it stopped. We never talk about when it stopped. Like that part is always like it's just like one day in history class you stop learning about Native Americans. and then they're just gone. and like from history, like they've been like they've been a fit, like or not, they've gone from society. And I recall, I don't recall, I didn't recall at the time, I didn't know at the time, but in recalling it now, one day I realized, you're talking about Thanksgiving or whatever, you're talking about the Trail of Tears, you're talking about reservations and Andrew Jackson, and then suddenly no more Native Americans. They're like at 1850, 1860, all Native Americans disappeared, and suddenly like and then like it's as though in America, our history, we can only engage with one minority group at a time. It's like first we talk about Native Americans, and then it overlaps with slavery. Occasionally we'll talk about the Asian immigrants as it relates to the building of the railroads and the gold rush. We'll talk about Mexican immigrants and the Mexican-American War, but there's little overlap. It's always one minority group in relation to white people, another minority group in relation to white people. And we have a very Eurocentric or Anglo-centric, whatever you want to call it, model for history, and it's always just the interactions of white people with these minority groups, as opposed to any kind of actual. We don't treat it as though there was like a give and take of culture. It's always just like white people came and wiped these people out, which they did in a lot of places. But it does it presents this level of passivity or submissiveness within the Native people, and that is not true to the events.
It also ignores all periods of times pre-white people. So the recording of time only starts when white people appear. So Native Americans, basically, they didn't exist. And then white people discovered them. And hey, look, here they are. Now they exist. Now they can be in the history books. And everything that preceded the white colonist appearing just didn't happen. And if it did, it's not of any importance. And if it was, then we weren't there to record it. So it might as well not have been.
Absolutely. Our history lacks object permanence. We assume that if white people are not observing it, it's not occurring. Again, like we don't like it, it's like if
it's a good thing I'm on this show, then else it wouldn't be occurring.
Exactly. It's like the universe lacks theory of mind. I think it can't tell what's going on without the presence of Caucasians. Like that's the way reality works. That's some heavy racist solitude.
It's interesting that you say that. In my people, we have history, that oral history. One of the stories is in the 1300s, where we were originally in Nova Scotia, received a prophecy that we should boogie woogie on out of there. We did. It took us about 400 or 500 years to, about 300 years to get to Michigan, Indiana, Illinois area, following this prophecy. Well, that was poo-pooed in the writings of the anthropologists of the 1900s, early 1900s.
And Pat, it looks like fell out, but I want to kind of piggyback onto that a little bit, because one of the things that I mentioned this, there's a ton of crossover in Black culture and Native culture. That's something that you don't ever really hear about. Like I remember, like Brand, like you said, there comes a point and then there's just no more Native people in your history book at all. Like my entire U.S. history course, I think we talked about Native people 2, maybe 3 times, and that was in the context of what could they do for us. But it's amazing how much crossover, how much give and take that actually happens. How much Native cultures have given to Black cultures. How closely we work together. And that, Pat, I want to hear your thoughts on this too, especially because we both kind of inhabit this Venn diagram of existing in this community. But like historically speaking, we Black folks had nobody else that we could rely on other than other Black folks and Native folks. And I include Latinos in this as well when I speak about Native folks. That's who we had to rely on. And that's what you see in a lot of Black culture. Pat and I joked about CP time and Indian time. There's automatically, like, we both, when you say that, I know exactly what you mean, because there's the exact same thing happening over here. And I don't know, Pat, like, what have you seen
as it pertains to, if you want to talk want to talk about the intersectionality of race, just go look at Virginia and what happened in the 1900s when all Indians were converted to people of color by the clerk of the court in Virginia. Of course, the tribes stayed the tribes. You know, we stayed people and we stayed together. But we were effectively wiped out of Virginia history in the like around 1910 when that happened. And all of a sudden, all of the black laws, you know, you can't go in this movie theater, you can't use this bathroom, you can't drink from this water fountain, did not apply to us until our birth certificates were changed to being black rather than native.
Okay, so guys,
So,
let
you
me
know,
try and bring it up to the present again. So, in response to all of these things, in the 60s, we saw the Malcolm, in the 50s and 60s and 70s, we saw the Malcolm X's and the Martin Luthers decrying the injustices of the world, including police brutality. There's a video on my public Facebook page about this, where you see Malcolm X talking to a congregation about police violence, about young men, unarmed civilians being killed by police. So this is not a new problem. But in recent years, we've seen Black Lives Matter spring up. Now, shortly after Black Lives Matter, Native Lives Matter tried a go at it as well. So my question is, with this intersectionality, has Black Lives Matter failed or just overlooked, or should they have been more wide in their arms with defining the problem? Would anyone care to tackle this? Brandon?
Well, I mean, I think it comes down to what you consider Black Lives Matter's goal to be. And more than anything, I feel like the goal and the purpose of Black Lives Matter is to break us out of that cycle that we talked about from the 60s and onward of being awakened by a tragedy, going back to sleep, and then being reawakened again. Obviously, some communities, the Black community, never got a chance to go to sleep. It's been constant terror, living under constant terror with the police, and it's been largely the middle class and above white communities that have been allowed to go to sleep after these tragedies and then be reawakened. What Black Lives Matter does better than anything is keep it fresh in people's minds. Like this is a problem that is ongoing. Until it's solved, we will continue to bring it to people's attention, because otherwise we will just exist in this cycle of perpetration and apology for all eternity, and nothing will ever be solved. Because with the 24-hour news cycle and and Twitter and Pokemon Go, people will forget. I think that Native Lives Matter should be exactly the same thing. Like, a lot of people simply forget that Native Americans exist because they're just not part of their day-to-day life. I mean, we talk about the segregation of blacks from whites, but I can't remember the last time I saw a Native American in person. so I can imagine that disconnect is even further. So, like, I'm just being serious. Like, when was the last time you saw a Native American person just walking down the street chilling? It's like, no. I mean, at least you can see Black people walking through your town. Some of you can. It's easy. Like, it's easy to forget. So it comes down to we need these groups to tackle the first problem, which is visibility of the problem, and constant vigilance to keep these things on people's minds, because otherwise they just get overtaken by tragedies that are more appealing because they appeal to our cultural sensibilities. So tragedies that occur, a missing white woman syndrome is what they call it. Because that will always be what our society trends towards. So I think Black Lives Matter has been successful in what it aims to do. I think some people expect too much from it, but they want it to be a solution, but they have the problem wrong, if that makes sense.
Okay. Adair, before I hear from you, I just want to hear Pat comment on the same question.
Well, can I take it in a little different direction here?
Sure.
The thing that struck me just now, and I mean it's just now, is the difference between why Native Americans tend to get, or at least what the official narrative is, of Native American getting killed by the cops versus being killed by the cops. Of a black person is generally couched in terms of I was afraid. I feared for myself.
Okay, seems like we lost Pat there again. He has some connectivity issues, even though he assured us that he had the most amazing internet ever. Okay, Adair, 2 minutes, and then we go to Richard, and then we go to the next segment.
Just quickly, so Black Lives Matter, the thing about that is the only thing people focus on that is black. Not what they do, not when they do it, not how they do it, just the black. So Black Lives Matter has gone to Standing Rock. Black Lives Matter is out there when Native Americans are murdered by police.
Okay, I'm back. Maybe.
Go ahead, Pat.
So there's this, if you will, the thing that came out in the trial on the cop, Eric Gardner turned into a monster. He was a monster. And I shot him because I was afraid. Whereas with the Native Americans, it just seems like we're just shot. Like a wild animal or that needs to be disposed of. We're not even given the dignity of being someone being afraid of us. We need to be killed. And that narrative ran through a lot of the race relations. If you look at it, blacks were prevented from learning how to read and write, and Indians were captured, made to go read and write. Different interactions with the dominant culture.
Yeah, okay, so vastly different experiences in meeting with the dominant culture. Adair, you were saying?
But yeah, so one of the things is people focus on the black and Black Lives Matter, not what Black Lives Matter does. Black Lives Matter has gone to Standing Rock and has stood in solidarity. When a Native American is gunned down by police, Black Lives Matters will be out there protesting, saying their name, saying that Native lives matter. Native lives matter, period.
It's just that we are not told, we're not shown about this. Oh, I can see.
Roxanne joined us.
Roxanne White from North Dakota.
Hi. Sorry, I charged my phone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Not loud and clear, but we can hear you. Roxanne, are you still there? Okay, so yeah, we've been trying to set up getting some interviews with people at Spirit Camp in North Dakota at the protest for the oil pipeline against it. Roxanne, are you there? Okay, and we're going to continue to try and get a connection. They have almost zero connection down there. Pat told me that they have an area called Facebook Hill, which is where people go and stand on their horse and wave the phone in the air to try and get a signal. But if Roxanne comes back, we'll try and see. Okay, Roxanne. Yeah, we can see. Why don't you just tell us about Spirit Camp and what's going on right now?
The service kind of sucks here. Sorry.
It's okay. Why don't you tell us about Spirit Camp and what's going on at the protest right now? Okay, this seems to be a very bad connection. Adair, can you try and text her old-fashioned way and see if she can find a better spot, or else we'll have to have her call you and you hold her up to your mic, hold the phone up to your mic or something.
All right, I'll see what I can do. Actually, I'll call her on Facebook real quick and we'll see if we can get her on.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, Richard, you were skipped a couple of times in our recent debate. Why don't you give us your 5 cents?
Well, I mean, I think one, like I mentioned with what I covered earlier, I think the ripple outcroppings of what the impacts of these events are is important to highlight. And I think there were some great points mentioned by Pat and Brandon regarding how the interactions with dominant cultures vary and the significance that has on the impacts moving forward. And I thought it was also interesting what Pat mentioned about how natives are basically just exterminated or excused. They don't even need the qualification of being a threat in order to justify their expulsion. And also with Brandon mentioned of white women or missing white women syndrome, and how that's especially recently plagued the Native community. And there was a large push over the last year to draw attention to the many missing Native women, and it seemed to have not gained the traction that you would think. I definitely didn't see much, if anything, about it in the mainstream press. So there's just so much injustice. It becomes hard, and one person or one group or one entity can only do so much. It becomes really hard to try and manage the coordination and I guess the coordination between separate groups that have many overlapping or common goals, but have unique circumstances which bring them to that point. And so I think Native Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, people that are affiliated with both groups or feel positively about both groups, I think we could all do a better job of networking and more effectively bringing change. But I don't think, as Brandon mentioned, that's something that's fairly placed on the shoulders of a group like BLM or Native Lives Matter. And Brandon wants to clarify something that I probably screwed up.
No. I totally agree with you, because I mean we never talk about the missing Native women that have plagued this country forever, but I still hear about JonBenét Ramsey. Like, I'm still hearing about JonBenét Ramsey 20 years later. Not that we shouldn't talk about missing white women. That's also a problem, but not to the exclusion of other women, especially when there are disproportionate amounts disappearing. What I do want to say, just in general, about Black Lives Matter, in relation, and also talk about the riots in Charleston, because there have been riots. I mean, there have been sort of more aggressive demonstration. Is I don't want to fall into the habit of delegitimizing what's going on in Charlotte, what happened in Charlotte, based on the rioting that's occurred, for a variety of reasons. But one of them is that because, as we've seen with Colin Kaepernick and Black Lives Matter in general, there is no right way to protest police brutality in America. No matter what you do, like the idea of tone is tone policing, for lack of better words. How you protest is just that. It's a scapegoating tactic. It's a logical fallacy to invalidate the message by saying, well, you're just not presenting it the right way. So when you're talking about Black Lives Matter, Native Lives Matter, the riots in Charlotte, graffitiing equipment in North Dakota, like, there is no right way to protest these things, because ultimately you're protesting the status quo, and there's no right way to protest the status quo.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like there is, I think it was The Daily Show that did a bit about how should Colin Kaepernick then have a question. And yes, Adair, I can see that she's there, but the problem is the picture is completely frozen again, and there's no longer any wind coming through the microphone. So
I just wanted to say, have her, like, Roxanne, call me really quick on Facebook so we can get you on the show. That's why.
Or just do a regular phone call. And then he'll hold the mic up to his mic, like something like that. Sorry, I got interrupted in my train of thought there. We are nearing the top of the hour of our first show, which was supposed to be centered on news, including news about the protest in Standing Rock. But we've been talking about the violence and about the different experience of Native Americans and Black people in relation with the dominant culture and or police. My name is Nis Vincent Peterson, and with Richard Green, we are the co-host and co-creators of the Project Sanity Show. Today with us, and we have Roxanne back. Okay, Roxanne, tell us about Standing Rock. What's going on down there? And she froze just as she was about to answer. Oh my God, this is epic.
The police in Standing Rock are using prototype time manipulation technology to literally put Native American into Native American time and doesn't
From
disrupt
what
their
I've read,
organizing.
it's actually been private security that's been egregious towards the protesters in Standing Rock, not so much the regular police. But that is one of the questions I would have liked to have asked and hopefully had answered here today. Okay. We're trying to get a hold of her. Adair, keep spamming those messages, man. Okay. Yeah. So where was I? I was plugging. Yeah. With us today is Pat Spray, who you can find on Twitter at Hells on Wheels with a C at the end of there. We have Brandon and we have Adair. Brandon has done a good amount of research and Adair has done a good amount of booking for our show today. And behind the scenes, we have Eric Miller, who is doing all the magic with our banners and Twitter feeds and all the good stuff that's toning out on the graphics for you guys watching the show. Okay, so we're moving into the second half of the hour. So we are going to be talking about the protest in Standing Rock, and we're going to be talking about oil pipelines, both the ones in Standing Rock, but also about the Bakken pipeline in Iowa that is going unsung, unfortunately, and what has been happening since the KeyXL died, and all of the oil spills that are happening in pipelines these days. So, Pat, I know that you have an interest in getting the story in Iowa out, that you feel like it's been overlooked quite a bit. Why don't you get people up to speed about the Bakken pipeline and the fight in Iowa? You're muted, Pat. Okay.
Hey, you're good. You're good. I've got 1 second. Let me unmute myself. Shucks. Hey guys, we've got Roxanne with us. How is it? How are things at the camp, Roxanne?
Well, I will tell you that it's a sad day today. I just received word. I'm a little bit late because I was picking up my van, but the owner of the land that we've been staying on at Oceti-Sakowee, he sold his land.
Oh no,
Dakota Access for $20 million.
I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, but I mean, it's just like, wow. This when I first got here, they spoke highly of this man, the people that own this land. They spoke highly. There was a relationship with the Lakota from Standing Rock in the Dakota, and they really respected him. And it's just a shock, that he would sell out to Dakota Access for money over water, over life. It's really sad, like what people will do for money.
Absolutely.
And the saddest thing is that here over in North Dakota, the local people from Bismarck and all the surrounding little cities or counties, whatever, they're all against the water protectors. They're making it a race issue instead of like, we're here fighting not against another race, but we're fighting against Dakota Access. We're fighting for water for future generations, because it's not a matter of when it leaks, it will break and it will leak. And when it does, and with their tractors, they're ruining sacred sites. They're destroying burial grounds. This reservation is just so amazing. Even though I've been able to look around here and I've been shown some of the sacred stone areas, and the Lakota people here are very strong in their culture, And like most Native Americans, we have our culture and we have our traditions that, and our teachings that was passed down to us from our great grandmothers and grandfathers, and so they keep that alive and they keep passing it down. Well, this Dakota Access is going to destroy history. It's going to destroy a lot of ancestral burial grounds and desecrate the water, which will eventually kill off our fish and the other wildlife and the grasslands and all the roots and things, the berries that they use naturally for medicines and stuff. So it's really sad. It's really sad across the country. I mean, it's been amazing. Over 200 tribes here. And we have non-Indigenous people here, that are here working hard, traveled thousands of miles to get here to support. But it's not over. Just because he sold his land doesn't mean that this is over. This just means that we move to they're going to move the camp on reservation land. So that's in the process of moving this to reservation land and off of this land because it's no longer the owners anymore. It's Dakota Access. But that doesn't mean that Dakota Access can just, start drilling because they bought some land. This fight isn't over.
And we
Long shot,
Absolutely. And what can we do from home, since unfortunately not all of us can make it? What can we do to support those of you at the camp? What kind of things does the camp need as far as supplies and things like that? What can we do to help out?
I will tell you, right now, because winter is coming, and for me being here, the ones that want to come and that are able to sacrifice their lives at home to come over here and camp and support and live until this is over, we need winterized tents. I've seen them on Facebook. In fact, I've shared them on my page. They're for cold weather. The weather is going to be really hard here for a lot of people. And we want people to be able to stay the long haul, because the more people we have, the better, the stronger we are together, So in order to do that, we need, as far as on our grounds, we have to figure out the road systems and how to make those accessible for the new camp. Also, we're always in need of wood. And just cold weather gear. This weather I heard over here in North Dakota is the kind of weather that if you're not prepared for it, you could be really hurt.
Yeah.
It's cold. It's cold. I've heard stories about what kind of cold weather it is over here. And so, that's I think, besides meat, we get a lot of donations of canned foods and stuff like that. We don't have anything. We can't bake stuff, so all that stuff we don't need. The main staples we always need here are meat, warm clothing, boots, rain boots, the heavy winter gear stuff, gloves, scarves, hats, and the cold weather tents, and wood, and these are the things that and LED lights, they do have some power, not very much here. I don't know if you know, but when this first started, North Dakota was supplying them with water, and then they shut it off. So we have to have the water brought in from the Standing Rock Reservation. They bring us in water, and that has to last. We don't have showers on the campgrounds. So it's been a struggle in that area. Like, it would be nice if we had those the travel showers, or even the ones that you can inflate and people can use. I know it's going to seem kind of ridiculous, when it gets really cold, who's going to want to shower? But, like, those are all luxuries here.
Right.
Those are big luxuries to have a shower. So people that come here really sacrifice. I know it was really hard when I first got here to get to a shower, and it was hot.
Yeah. I mean, and I want to ask you about, because what a lot of people aren't understanding is you made a great point that this isn't one ethnicity fighting another ethnicity, that this is really about life. But there's also, and one of the things I really want people to understand is there's very much a cultural attachment to areas that are considered sacred, to water across every culture throughout the entire world. Water is something that we consider sacred. So
yes, to all of us.
What would you say to those at home who are skeptical, to put it mildly, of why people are there, what it means both as a human being, but also culturally, especially given the background of what's going on, the background with the treatment that we've done of the indigenous people in America, going back to from the moment settlers set foot on this land?
Oh yeah, because our ancestors, our great grandfathers knew that when the invaders, we call them invaders, when they invaded this beautiful country, they knew that they would come with greed and destroy everything. Everything that we held sacred, which is Mother Earth, which is the water. Everything we did ran in coalition with the circle. It's not about, taking more than you need. Just take what you need and honor that. And that is still our way of life. We still practice these traditions, and we do them yearly. Like we honor our fish. Our salmon is sacred. Our buffalo, our elk. The roots and berries that we've picked and dug for so many years. All this stuff is related to the water. And the fact is that, the government, I'm so devastated and, like, just appalled at the fact that, President Obama is, our government does not. He got on. I don't know if you've seen that, but he got on and said a bunch of stuff about how, pipelines, how much they weren't good for. They had nothing positive to offer. Everything that would come out of a pipeline would be dangerous. And you have already seen it in Texas and Gulf of Mexico. All this stuff, Canada, all these people, Alaska, that have been already devastated and desecrated by pipelines. Okay, so, like, to people that, I wish that, the world would not see this as just us trying to protect our culture and our way of life, but us trying to protect our water for future generations.
Absolutely.
And this is so much bigger than us, so if you're not Native American, or you are, they still want as many people. We're making the call. Come. We need you. We need as many as we can get to come here and support us. So, and right now is just the strongest time for us as Native American people. Yes, it's a beautiful thing that we're all coming together, but we also need non-Native Americans to come and support us. I'm so proud of my people. I'm so proud of us for coming out of our quietness and using our voices. And what better to use our voices for than to fight for water, sacred water. The water is life. If we have no water, and I know I'm not saying this to you like you don't know, but if we don't have no water, see, the world, I don't know if the world really understands this. if we don't have no water, we don't have anything. We don't have anything. I mean, it'll all be over.
Absolutely.
And then what will we have? Money can't buy water. It should never be able to buy water and destroy what keeps us all alive. We use water for everything. And so, like, to me, you know, I just wish that everybody would understand that this is, yes, we're fighting for sacred burial grounds and to protect and preserve these things. But at the same time, this is about the entire world.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I know you know this, especially being at the camp, that when this pipeline, and this is again mostly for our folks at home, when this pipeline does burst, the Missouri River is one of the main tributaries to the Mississippi River. That this won't be just limited to a small section of land, that this will affect hundreds of millions of people throughout the US and Canada. And that these folks at Standing Rock protecting this water for you are there making sure that not just their children and their culture and their families can go on, but yours as well. So I really want to employ my folks at home to help out Standing Rock. Send what you can, help out how you can, and just in Roxanne, whatever we can do and whatever you can let us know to do. And I speak as a person of mixed heritage who understands the value of culture, who I want to make sure that we respect that for those that go, but understand this is about everyone's water. This is about life as opposed to profit.
Yes, and you know, and when you said that, what just came to my mind right now is, you know, now's the time for not just us, but like if you know your area is going to be affected by this pipeline downstream, start rising up in your area, because if they put down this pipeline, if they continue to do this, it's going to affect everybody downstream. So, you know, we don't need to be the only ones here. People can start because it's going to affect them. You know what I'm saying? Like I love what Seattle's doing, because that's where I live, you know, and I see the way I love Seattle. I love the support that they give, you know, and the protesting and the marching and stuff, and that's great. And other counties can do that downstream, because if they win, which we're not, see, this is why this camp is not going anywhere. We're not accepting a no. I don't know what that looks like. They plan to stay here till January. So honestly, like, we need some help in the technology of making it livable, because the governor of North Dakota is counting on us to not make it through the winter here. That's what we need help with. We need help from the world so that we can maintain our ground to protect the water and the animals and the grounds and the earth, so and our environment, or the air we breathe. So we need that kind of support. We need whatever winter stuff, winter eyes, tents, whatever, so that we can make it through this time, because I'm telling you, a lot of people are going to leave if they don't have the means to stay. So that's how the world can help. You know what I mean? And I know that there's a lot of websites, but I'm over here at Ochete Shakoi, which is the main camp. Now, the first camp that was laid down was Sacred Stone. I think, I can't remember what they call it now, but it's very small. And then they started the Overflow, which is the big camp. Okay, so this big camp, Ochete Shakoi, we have the most, like you've seen pictures of it. It's huge.
Absolutely.
It is huge. And so I've been to meetings here. They have asked to not, especially because now, and I'm going to say this. Okay, so the lady that, the wife of the man, you know, of the landowners, the landowners here, she had a GoFundMe account. Okay, there was $800,000 in that, and I know she gave some to different camps or whatever, but they're no longer our allies. They sold out.
Right.
So people need to stop sending money there because I think that they've already prospered enough. Any more donations needs to go to Standing Rock Sioux Reservation. And I will send you that address.
Please.
I may even be able to pull it up right now.
Yes.
And give you that address.
If you're able to.
Actually, I got it right here. So, this is the most recent. And I just gave it to somebody else, so I could give it to you because I was pretty upset that that they were actually like getting all these fundings, and when we're the biggest camp, we feed the most people, we provide for everybody here, and so we need that. They need that funding here, and not over to the landowners that just sold out to Dakota Access.
Absolutely.
Because this is how we're going to make it through here. So,
Roxanne,
in 1 minute.
can you ask Roxanne about the unprecedented the Sioux Nation chiefs coming together for the first time?
So Nis has asked about the coming together of the different chiefs for which is, from what we've been told, unprecedented, and this is the first time it's happened. Can you give us any info on that? Any thoughts that you might have on it, or reports from the ground?
What?
Nis, can you repeat that? I think she might be able to hear you. I'm going to move my phone so that way you're closer to the speaker.
We've been told that for the first time since the 1800s that the Sioux Nation chiefs.
Wait, Miss. Roxanne, can you start again? She's giving us the number, the address to send donations to Standing Rock. Could you give that address real quick? I'm sorry, Miss. My phone's gonna die.
It's Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, P.O. Box 4 Yates, North Dakota 58538. Attention, Janelle, JANELLE LEINGANG. Janelle Linging. And so that's the correct direct line to Halfo-Cheti Shakoi, which is the largest camp and the main camp. They also have Red Warrior, which you could also donate to them as far as but also Ocheti Shakoi is where everybody comes. When you see it on the live footage, when they come in and they present and they walk in with their chiefs and all that, we're the main ones that receive everybody. Okay. So that's where the funding should go.
Awesome. And then one of our co-hosts and co-creators, Nis, had a question. I'm going to ask Nis to speak, and then you let me know if you can hear him. Okay, Roxanne?
Okay.
Okay, Roxanne, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've been told that an alliance is happening between the varying Lakota or Sioux tribes, and that alliances are also happening with other native people from Canada and from South America. Can you talk about this?
I really didn't catch everything you said. I heard Canada and South America.
Nis is asking about where there's reports being given out that there are alliances being formed from different tribes, not only within the United States, but also from Canada and from South America. He wanted to know if you had any information that you could give us about that, because a lot of people are told about it, but aren't told what significance there isn't in that and what it means for the camp itself.
Oh man, yeah, we've had South America, we've had people from Palestinian come here.
Wow.
Palestinians, come in here, and we've had Muslims, we've had Hawaii. I mean, yes, we've had indigenous from across the world come to join us because for one, they're indigenous. For two, a lot of times, and it doesn't matter what part of the world you're from, wherever, if you're indigenous, the governments, the rich, the 1%, they're always running all over us. They don't respect our lifestyle. We're disposable to them. And so they came, we've had all that. It's been a beautiful thing to witness. Honestly, like I'll never forget the things that I've witnessed here, of all the different nationalities that have come from across the world to be here. Yeah, it's very true. And when they come, we honor them, they honor us, and we welcome them in the camp and appreciate them coming. So anybody's welcome, as long as they're willing to respect the rules of the Lakota.
And could you give us those rules? Are you allowed to give us those rules? Because I would like some of our folks at home who are watching to not go in ignorant. I know that's something that oftentimes can happen, especially from different communities. There tends to be a lot of overlap culturally, but it's always best to have the rules laid out.
Yeah, so like if you were to come here, you definitely want to come here and present if you want to bring your flag or just present your group. You always want to come into the Lakota and greet yourself and ask to be accepted here. Ask to be on this land and to stand in solidarity with them, and it's just an exchange of respect, and they also have their rules. One of the main things that is this: no violence, absolutely no drugs and alcohol. This is a community, so a lot of times, because we do have different cultures and stuff like that, we try to give everybody, I've seen them try to give everybody a place, a time and a place to share their culture, share their songs, share their prayers. It doesn't matter where you're from. So those things are all, being respected. The only thing, I think the biggest thing is that we are a drug-free, alcohol-free community, and those that break those laws will be asked to leave and won't be able to come back.
Absolutely. And
that's respecting the land as well as that's as far as if you smoke a cigarette, don't throw your cigarette butt down.
Right.
That's how serious they are about the land. They're very serious about the respect of the land. So, and we have things we're still working on, as far as getting off styrofoam and any paper plates. As the camp slows down and people the size goes down. They're working on so many things to just be off of anything that could ruin the environment.
Absolutely.
So, like, if you're gonna come, those are the main things: is find out who the council members are, to present yourself.
Absolutely.
And they will greet you and welcome you.
And
open arms.
I want to ask real quick.
Open hearts.
If so, Nis apparently has another question, and then if anyone else after Nis too, so that way we can get some variety.
Okay.
Okay, I wanted to hear, do you have any actions planned that you need support for in the near future, or where you need more awareness around?
Okay, I didn't hear him again.
Okay, so he asked if there's any actions that are planned that you need support for in the near future, and what else, Nis?
No, where they need extra spotlight on it in case they play dirty.
Okay, so is there any actions planned where you guys feel you're gonna need any extra spotlight on anybody, people getting out that information, so that way people know what's really happening in case the Dakota Access people play dirty?
Oh, they're going to play dirty. I know they're going to play dirty. We expected. As shocked as I was, some of the elders around here have told me they've seen it coming. Yeah. As far as like the landowners selling their land and all that kind of stuff. So, at this point, I don't think I know exactly what that might be. I know that there was a meeting where they asked for more attorneys that might want to come here and support and volunteer for criminal justice and civil rights or whatever, you know, environmentally protecting. They do need more attorneys to come through and support and give up some time if they can do that.
Absolutely. And
Because that's the biggest thing. We need representation. We need the legal system. We need anybody in the legal system that's willing to back us up.
absolutely. And Brandon, Richard, Nis, Pat, any more questions, guys? Everyone. All right. So I want to thank you for your time, Roxanne, and please feel free to give the cell number that you just called me on to anybody at the camp that would like to come on and talk, and anybody that, you know, wants to get any information out, any way we can help. Please let me know, and we're always here to help out, do whatever we can. I really appreciate your time tonight, Roxanne, and thank you and to everyone else for going out there and protecting the water.
Okay. Thank you too, Katiaya.
Have a good one.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, so that was Roxanne, and live from Standing Rock, and that was some very disheartening news that the landowners sold their land where the camp is situated. Now, of course, we need some more details about how and why. So far, as far as I've been told, most of the land that Dakota Access has been acquiring has been acquired through eminent domain, where the landowner doesn't always get a fair shake or fair price. So whether or not there's been threats or intimidation involved, what kind of a choice the landowner had left, we don't know yet, but we're hoping to find out more about that as time passes. But so far, it's not good news, and it does not seem to be a good turn of events. But hopefully they can march on, reestablish the camp in a new place. Pat, what is your impression on what we heard today? And Pat's feed froze up completely. Okay, so we're having all the luck with the transmissions and the feed and the technical stuff. Brandon, you want to get in here?
Yeah, I mean, I just think one of the key things we should take away from what has been said here is that this is not an ethnic issue. Of course, the Native Americans have their own, you know, cultural stake in this land, and the land that is, you know, and the implications of an oil spill for them are in certain ways different because their cultural valuation of water and land and its place in their history is much different than ours. But this particular, the DAPL, you know, goes over 209 different waterways, including the Missouri River, including the Mississippi River, the two largest rivers in the United States, I want to say. And I know Missouri is the largest, so Mississippi might be. They're pretty big. So this has the implications of polluting a variety of waterways. It also travels over 80% of it travels over agricultural land in the Midwest. There seemed to have been some fear of there being a spill, a likelihood of a spill, because they moved the original pipeline from going past Bismarck to going this new route. So there is at least a tacit acknowledgement that a spill might occur and that water might be polluted. But you know, but what we're seeing here, what we see always, you know, a lot of times, we make this larger narrative about corporatism or about the military or prison industrial complex an ethnic issue. You know, it's like this, the same with police violence. We made it an ethnic issue, and while there might be a disproportional stake in the consequences for, the effect of these issues, the prison industrial complex, you know, the drug war has very real implications for not only the people of color community, but also the white community. Same with this water, you know, this issue of polluted water. You know, like it may disproportionately affect a certain group because of, you know, shit trickles down, but whatever. But ultimately, they're going to, the white populations, the populations that we do traditionally value, are also going to see the effects of these tragedies and these movements. And the easiest way for the people in charge to downplay these issues is by making them ethnic issues. This is just identity politics. This is just Black people or Native Americans complaining and they're backwards and they're really just X, Y, and Z. When really that's just an obfuscating tactic. Like, we need to really engage with this at the entirety of society by saying no. Everyone needs water. This is going whether or not you value it as sacred or not is irrelevant. You have to drink it. So let's find common ground here and really engage with this for what it is, an environmental issue, human rights issue. Access to water is a human rights issue. These are certain things I think we can all agree on, and they need to be foreground in this conversation and not let this simply become an issue of native rights versus, although that is important, and it'd be great if we could just keep it at that and have people really care, but it's not just an issue of native rights. It's an issue of human rights, of people versus corporations, of all of these things that have big lasting impacts on the way we do politics in America.
And I think you mentioned the politics in America aspect, and I think that has been kind of at the root of my distaste towards those that are trying to shame people into voting for Hillary Clinton. Is like, we have you mentioned the water aspect, and what comes to my mind is, well, we don't need to protect the water. We can just have, we can just buy it from Nestle. And we have Trump out there saying, well, Nestle will just corporatize the water and protect it for their bottom line. That's the best way to protect the water, is to give them a profit motive to protect it. And then we have Hillary Clinton saying, well, I'll support you guys being able to collectively bargain as cities or states in order to purchase the water from Nestle. And has effectively shifted the left towards that neoliberal version of what we could do to move forward and to progress, and basically taken off the concept that water is a right and people should have access to water regardless off the table altogether. And so that the idea is that we're protecting ourselves by supporting Hillary Clinton from a big bad Donald Trump. But I think it's a lot easier to fight against somebody saying, I'm going to corporatize all water, and somebody saying that, well, I'm going to fight for your right to be able to collectively bargain for that corporatized water.
We can barely agree on what constitutes being a human. So I think agreeing on human rights is the next step, and then agreeing on sort of what rights do we have as a member of American society, or what does our social contract guarantee us? And we still can't agree on who's human, what constitutes a human. So I think that there are certain issues. I think that it's sad, but we're not quite there yet. And I think that the response to police shootings from both the theoretical left and the theoretical right, the response to this pipeline issue and the issue of water access like in Flint should really make us rethink how not only are we engaging with the concept of corporate rights, but just general human decency, and what constitutes humanity in our society.
Well, that's
I'm talking of speak just for a moment to the notion of what constitutes a human. In 1889 was the decision of Standing Bear, whereon an Indian was considered a human being for the purposes of being able to testify in court. My maternal grandmother was 3 years old when that happened. Just to give you a little bit of context there on where this hits the Native communities, is that people my age, our grandparents, were not considered human beings. My father was not born a U.S. citizen. He was born in 1924. Indians weren't given U.S. citizenship until 1927. In World War I, because of our service in World War I. No one knows that we served in the Civil War, North and South, except for the Cherokee. They'll talk about that. But there were divisions of Northern troops that were totally Native American. These things about talking about humans, so talking about the water, and if you talk to someone from the dominant culture about, they're going to ruin the water where we live, their minds in the way that they think, if the water's polluted where you live, just move.
Mm-hmm.
land doesn't belong to us. We belong to the land. Our identity is in the land. Our standing with the U.S. government under Article 6 of the Constitution, which is considered treaties are the law of the land. Our treaties are made about the land. Without the land, we cease to exist. You are looking at the annihilation of a people.
Mm.
When you completely devastate the water and the land. And I'll get off my soapbox now.
Okay. And to the people who don't think that polluting water is that big of a deal right now, I would like to just point a couple of things out. If you're such a fervent believer in capitalism, then Michael Burry, who is the founder of Zion Capital, he's portrayed in the movie The Big Short, among other places, also in a book about what happened in 2008. He was one of the very first people to do credit default swaps on the mortgages. He was one of the very first people to say, okay, this is going to burst. This is where the next big windfall is going to be. And he, after 2008, after having made billions of dollars for all of his partners and everyone who was a member of his hedge fund, he shut down Zion Capital because he thought that Wall Street was basically a fraudulent market, and went into investing on his own. And where did you think he put all of his money? He invested it in water, buying up land with clean water, and buying stocks in companies focused on water, because that is the next scarce resource we're going to be fighting over. It's water. So when you look at what happened in California because of the drought, where water is being allocated to avocado farms, while at the same time infrastructure is collapsing because the earth is giving in under itself because all the groundwater has been soaked out of the ground. There's no more groundwater in the greater Los Angeles area, and for quite a few miles around that area, there's no more water in the ground. It simply isn't there. And yeah, then you can do the whole convert seawater into drinking water. Yeah, it takes time, so it puts a limit on it, but okay, let's say that works. What does that then do to marine life? What does that then do to the cycle of water coming into the atmosphere and then becoming rain? Like, does that just prolong the periods of drought? We don't know what kind of long-term effects that has. So if you think that fighting for water is not a big deal, then you need to reassess. You need to go out and research just a little bit on what's going on in the waterfront.
I'd say it's important to note that recently a new report just came out that the what's being referred to as the Aaron Brockovich chemical, but the chemical that was made popular by both the movie that came out and then also with the case itself, was found in about 200 million Americans' taps, essentially. It came back from 75% of the tests came back positive for the chromium-6, and at least 7 million people are above the 10 parts per billion, or I think per billion, I want to say, or
per million.
Per million. No, it is per billion.
Okay.
It's yeah, and so 7 million people are living with above the limit that California has set, although there's been no national or federal standard set at all. And so, but we do know that California set a standard at 10 parts per billion, and at least 7 million people are getting water more poisonous than that. We also know about Flint, over a year of poison water, and still no relief other than commercial.
Oh, yeah, they got some relief. Their governor, Snyder, he enacted a law preventing Flint from suing the state.
No, that's wonderful. Well, I know some people were able to get out of their large bills, but I'll go ahead and let Brent. I just wanted to mention is like there. Well, if you don't, just because you don't think your water is being affected, you're probably just not aware. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. If it's not against the law, it's not bad, right? It's like as long as it's not technically against the law, it's like it's in no way immoral, because the law is the sole arbiter of morality. If it, just not legal.
Well, there's a second part. It has to be profitable. If you're losing money, and that, then it's not. Then it's no good. Then
I mean-
but it's legal. You know. I mean,
Well,
it's
obviously the highest good is to make money. That's like that is the highest good. But you're okay from a moral standpoint as long as you're technically not breaking the law. Technically.
Okay. Guys,
But,
I have to bring us back to the oil pipelines. We haven't touched on the Iowa pipelines yet. So we touched on the pipeline here. It's going across the Missouri and the Mississippi. Now, the Key XL has for a long time been seen as the big pipeline that was supposed to be opposed, and then everything would be nice and dandy. But while that fight drew on over many years, more and more oil pipelines were being planned and even approved. Now, the Key XL pipeline was supposed to be the mother of all pipelines, 800,000 barrels of oil a day. Now, in Canada alone, they have approved several pipelines and started construction on quite a few of them, where these pipelines, just one of them, is over 1.2 million barrels a day. The Bakken pipeline is over 500,000 barrels of oil a day. So just that one pipeline is 2/3 of the size of the Key XL pipeline, and the Bakken pipeline is being seen as a measure of getting oil to other pipelines, so that the Keystone XL pipeline will, in essence, be recreated through many minor pipelines that are smaller than what the Key XL would have been. So oil pipelines are going on all over, and most likely about the pipeline spill here in the south. But what you may not have heard about is that in the Amazon in Peru, they have an oil pipeline that has over 20 spills just in the major spills, I have to say, within the last decade. And there's no end in sight, simply because the oil pipeline has been constructed in places that are now so remote or too expensive to get to, or too hard to get to, that the leaks, the pipes can't be maintained, and they basically can't be the leaks basically can't be plugged until they have been happening for too long. And when you say, well, we don't have Amazon forest in America, no, but in America we have a tendency to bury the pipelines. And if you ask an oil company to dig up a 50-year-old pipeline to make sure that it's still up to snuff, that it's still up to standards, what do you think the answer is going to be? So what's the answer?
There's pipelines underneath.
Yeah.
Yes, there's pipelines underneath the Great Lakes as well, right? And they're talking about wanting to run Bakken crude underneath through these. They're actually for refined oil, but they want to start running this raw oil, this Bakken crude, which is basically a thinned down asphalt. It's got rocks and all kinds of stuff in it. It's not just a liquid like you think of canola oil next to your stove. And they want to run that underneath the Great Lakes, and the tribes up there have been working against that for at least 6 years that I know of.
Yeah. So even though
I'm sorry, just to interject.
Yeah, go.
Sorry, just to interject. That's called the Enbridge pipeline, the one that runs under the Great Lakes. There, the pipeline that Pat is referring to is the Enbridge pipeline. And what's worth noting is that the Great Lakes comprise 20% of all fresh water in the world. Like, not just like the Great. That's why they're the Great Lakes. So the Great Lakes combined comprise 1/5 of all fresh water in the entirety of the world. So we talk about water security and safety and such like that. Although they're not, the Great Lakes aren't particularly clean, but they could be dirtier. Is what I'm trying to say. So.
Yeah. So even though a lot of us most likely don't deserve it, it seems like Native Americans seeing themselves as protector of the land, protector of life, and protector of water are doing us all a great service by fighting these pipelines. And we seem to be very, very lax in our diligence as to trying to stop this very, very dirty form of energy being transported over these areas where it should just be nowhere near it. Like, they should be nowhere near fresh water. It's that simple, especially the Great Lakes.
I wouldn't call
It's
the Great.
inviting disaster.
I'm going to go back on. I wouldn't call the Great Lakes freshwater. I'd call it non-salinated. Non-salinated. I wouldn't have a cup of Lake. I wouldn't go and get a cup of Lake Erie water and drink it. I would. I would just. It's water. But isn't that always? Hasn't that always been the case in this? The idea that minorities within these cultures tend to act as the canary in the coal mine. Like the moral compass of these places. Mostly because they're the ones who tend to be the first affected and the most affected by these issues. And so ultimately they come out first. They usually spearhead these movements, whether it's about police brutality or the drug war or any other, or clean water, because it hits them hardest and it hits them first.
Yeah, it is. It seems to be a trend. It seems to be going on constantly, and there seems to be very little that, like, I remember as a history student, we were taught that, and the end of the 18th century, nations started working together, and you had the League of Nations, and then you had the UN, and big powers are now constrained by all the deals they have with smaller powers, and the UN is a place where people can come together and everyone is heard, and big power can no longer do whatever it pleases, except the UN has consistently ignored natives throughout, indigenous people throughout the world, their plight, their needs, their help, their cries for help, simply because major nations, major powers, or simply major business has not seen a profit in acquiescing to a simple demand called, hey, could you please not privatize the water in my well that I dug myself?
Well, I mean, the UN, in their defense, the UN does have a special committee for indigenous rights, and it's the Indigenous Advisory Board, or I think it's the IAB or something. They do deal with these issues, but the UN lacks teeth. It's like you said, they're unable to compel any one nation, especially when there's issues of oil involved or other natural resources, to actually do anything. But they have long lists and reports on here's what Native peoples really need and what they really want. I think if you take that list and you compare it to what we've seen recently in Australia, where Prime Minister Turnbull just recently returned 55 hectares of land to the Native population, with an extra 13,000 hectares of land, in order to ensure that they have economic independence and to validate their traditional claims for land. That's really engaging with this kind of post-colonial, indigenous rights activism that's been going on for a long time. And more countries should take that route and really, try to give these people back not only their land, but their ability to be self-sufficient economically and compete. And not only.
Okay, Adair, final thoughts, and then we're gonna let. Pat, why don't you take us out of the show today and tell us a bit about your thoughts on what we've heard, and then help us queue up the video of this protest march that we're gonna hear. And you're muted.
Secret march.
Yeah, it's because it's secret. I completely forgotten about that.
Yeah, I have to wave my mouse around on the screen forever to get the little status bar to come up. My thoughts on this it's always good to come together and speak of our differences and our commonalities. Sometimes we gain clarity of someone else's perspective. Other times, and I think this broadcast might have been one of them, where we synthesize a new way to look at things, a new way to work together, a new way to come together, and to address the issues that face us all. Just because natives are the ones that are standing up saying, water is sacred, water is life. There's a way that we need to treat one another, a way that by extension we then treat our environment, because in different ways of thinking, those things are not separate. We are all related. The land, the water, the people, the creatures that live on the land and in the water and in the air, we are all related. And if we destroy, whether it's by police shooting people or by corporations, if we allow that to happen, we are negating our relationship to one another. I can't hear you, Ness.
Together with my indigenous brothers and sisters and our allies to call upon the world to keep the oil in the ground, defend the Amazon, fight against climate change, and also protect the environment.
And one of the most important aspects is that they've put indigenous issues at the forefront of the walk. And I think a lot of people, a lot of activists are noticing that First Nation are at the forefront of climate change.
Reconnecting and restoring that balance. And we hear that over and over from community to community. It doesn't matter if they're coming from Polynesia, coming from the Arctic, it's all about restoring the balance.
Resource extraction and exploitation of our lands is so easy because they go hand in hand. Violence against the earth begets violence against women, and I think that when we don't deal with both of them, we're not ever going to really resolve the issue of the colonial mind and the colonial mentalities and the values of patriarchy and the values of capitalism that essentially exploit the land and exploit our women.
Not be quiet to take action now, because we cannot be standing there. We have to do something, and that's what we're doing here. We are all taking action today. We're Little No More.